In this project, you'll use the sound trigger to turn on an LED light when the sound trigger hears a sound. The sound trigger has a range from 0 to 1023, and when you plug that in, you can check to see if it's working after you've uploaded this program by lightly tapping it. Then you can adjust the threshold for lighting the LED inside the if statement. Within the void setup function, you'll use a pin mode function to set port A1 as an input. The sound trigger is going to be plugged into the smaller block of ports at the bottom of MakerBoard, and make sure the plus sign on the sound trigger is matched up with the plus sign on a port, and the minus sign on the sound trigger is matched up with the minus sign on a port. The other pin mode function has the arguments to and output for an LED light plugged in to port 2. The void loop function contains an if-else statement. The if statement has two parts. Between its parentheses is a condition that the program checks, and between the curly braces is the code that will run if the condition is true. Here, the code is taking an analog reading from port A1, and it's checking, is analog read of A1 greater than 700? So if it's true that the analog reading of A1 is greater than 700, then the code inside the curly braces of the if statement will run digital writing port 2 high or turning on the LED. The else statement actions run only when the if statement condition is false. So if the void loop checks, is the analog reading from A1 greater than 700, and that's not true, then the actions of the if statement are skipped and the action of the else statement is run. Here, that's a function digital write with the arguments to and low, and that's going to turn off LED 2. Each time the void loop runs, either the actions of the if statement or the actions of the else statement will run. When the void loop reaches the closing curly brace, the code will jump back up to line 12 and check the condition of the if statement again. Keep in mind as you're playing with this project that sound is a fast-moving signal. Think about snapping your fingers. There's no sound, then you hear the snap very quickly, and then the snap is gone immediately. So if you snap your fingers, you may barely see the LED blip on and blip off. You'll have to watch really closely to see which sounds can trigger the LED to turn on. If you want more quiet sounds to trigger the LED to turn on, you can play with this threshold value and say rather than 700, you want the LED to turn on anytime the sound reading is greater than 100. This will allow more sounds to flick on the LED. Remember that the sound trigger has a reading range from 0 to 1023. 0 is almost perfect silence, and 1023 would be like a loud clap. So you can play with this threshold, but don't forget to upload your code after you make each change so that you can see the changes on your hardware.